back again, friends, to Tactical Enlightenment. This channel is dedicated to showing you not only the most titanic battles in Bannerlord, but also demonstrating advanced battlefield tactics and field command to help you dominate your own game. Alright friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. This YouTube channel is dedicated to showing you huge battlefields in Bannerlord and then giving you the advanced tactics necessary to win those huge battles. We continue on in this episode with part 2 of this great battle here in Epicrotia. This is just a recap because this battle was so large it took 2 parts. We were coming in to take a look at the size of this enormous enemy force that was attacking us, and as you can see, suddenly we got ambushed. They broke off their siege and just attacked us with this enormous coalition of enemy forces. It ended up being something like 67 different Lord armies that were ended up here. Because they attacked us, we couldn't surrender. It was really a dire situation. So into battle we swept. You can see it's just an absolutely screen. The army covers the whole fucking map. It's a whole screen. 9,700 troops. I couldn't run away. I couldn't upgrade any troops. This was just a dire situation to be thrown into. So for those who didn't watch part 1, we can recap it a little bit, but I highly recommend you go watch part 1 of this huge battle. There was thunder, there was lightning. It was an epic scene as this coalition army bore down on our small but hardy seasoned war veteran army here. At this stage, we had reinforcements across the river from us, and this band of 60 or 70 archers left. And I just said, you know what, we're going to have to fight it out with archers here. Even though I'm on a sliver of health, you know, we flew into battle here. Better to die with a sword in your face than an arrow in your back. Now, a lot of times in epic battles like this, where I'm down to a sliver of life, it makes the most sense for me to back off to a safe distance and command my troops. But the enemy here is bearing into our archers. We had like 40 or 30 archers on this flank, and they were starting to plow a hole. I wasn't willing to let that just go without adding my sword to the mix. That if this was going to be our last stand, there was no better way to go than to join my men in battle to the end. So in we go. Trying to get the infantry line behind them so that they can both support and protect the archers. The enemy in this situation was trying to reform, so it just flew in like reckless mad dogs, trying to break up their formations, trying to cause them to reconsider reforming, and that's precisely what happened. See their infantry trying to reform. Our infantry is bearing in on their flank, and these handful of archers left are fighting up here. Of course, at this stage, I can hardly handle more than a glancing blow. I'm down to just a handful of hit points left. But in this desperate battle, I felt like there was no choice but to support my men. Enemies reforming their line over this hill. Meanwhile, now we have our forces at least concentrated down here. 200 guys, slight balance towards archers. And so it was time to set up another defensive line. Throughout most of this battle, the AI was operating in a very intelligent manner. Most of the time they were doing things that might even mimic what a human opponent would do. They were forming defensive lines, they were skirmishing at range, they were being hesitant to attack when we obviously had nasty infantry forces in their face. It made this difficult battle even harder. Never mind the fact that we're outnumbered, you know, 7-1. Forming an infantry line at the top of this hill with the archers behind them. Again, it's a little bit of the decline slope defense, peekaboo ridge defense, where you force the enemy to sort of come over the ridge to shoot at you with their archers. Throughout most of this fight, the enemy had 3 or 4 times the archers we had, maybe more, and they were using it to full advantage. They were shooting and skirmishing at range. They were being very careful, which is the appropriate strategy, but of course it makes it even harder for us to deal with it. These guys were trying to reform. They were basically just dead men. You can see they also have a huge amount of horse archers and cav, and at this stage, I am the horse archer division. I am the heavy cav division. It's my character. I have no other cavalry at all. My infantry's doing a good job absorbing arrows. But again, they're playing very defensive. They're positioned extremely well. So we're going to try to get a little better angular attack here by moving our archers, protect a little bit more under the base of this hill. The enemy will inevitably come over that hill, and when they do, our main task will then be to use these archers and infantry in a way that's effective. Probably that's initially shooting bolts and arrows, and then when these guys run out of ammo, as a lot of them already have, they're holding their shields up. What we're going to try to do is turn the enemy's left flank. I need a horse. We're going to turn the enemy's left flank by bringing these archers around the side and try to crimp in on the enemy. A lot of times a flanking attack in this situation will overcome numbers. Even if you're outnumbered, that flanking attack will cause great damage to the enemy. You can sort of push in on their units and do major damage that way. The other problem is 206 horse archers, right? This is a major problem for us at this stage. These are mobile archers. What I decided ultimately to do here is to try to crimp them off with infantry. See how they're pressed against the shore there? So I pulled infantry towards the shore, basically had them charge and trap this large body of horses. It's hard for me actually to stand and give command because there's so many enemy archers that even across the valley I got fucks shooting at me. So you see our line of infantry there closed in on their horse archers and butchered a lot of them. Ultimately, in a battle like this, I would love just to sit back and give command, but with no other cav support, I felt like I had to fly into battle here. Inspire the men a little bit with some reckless courage. Enemy has a strong infantry line here, but they're holding in shield wall. Again, they continue to lean on their archers. It's almost like the AI is learning from our approach. What we can do, though, is this is a situation I was talking about. We can try to close in the flank of these infantry. We can come in from the side and effectively flank them. Get archers in on the enemy's left flank and then attack. Unfortunately, the computer already has heavy cav coming up to support them.
Archer, give him hell!
See, a lot of my archers are in shield wall. That's a very effective tactic. If you have a mixed group of archers, I like to use one group in shield wall, and if you have a mix where it's archers and crossbowmen, if you say shield wall, of course the guys without shields aren't going to go find a shield. They're going to continue to shoot. They're going to continue to attack. The advantage, though, is all your crossbowmen who are out of arrows effectively become a nice little wall of protection for the rest of your archers. They'll come up and shield wall. They'll attack while your other guys go to work with their bow. Speaking of going to work, I'm going to have to kill half their horse archers myself. I got archers chasing after them on foot. That's a very bad sign. That means they're out of arrows, trying to chase guys on horses. That's why I've got to help. They're starting to bring up heavy cav here. And I don't know if you noticed, anybody who's watched this whole battle, the enemy has had tier 5 troops the entire battle. I've got reinforcements across the river here. This kind of a moment is a perfect opportunity to reform my lines here. I'm going to have to drag these guys back. I can't have these guys attacking on both sides of the river with their numbers spread out. In a battle with more even numbers, I might be able to pull that off, but not in a battle like this. I'm going to have to concentrate my forces over here. The good news, though, is I do have some archers here. For the first time in quite a while, I've got a nice tranche of archers, and some of these guys probably have a good amount of ammunition. Right, these guys just popped into the map. We should be able to make a stand. This is actually where the battle started, too. Right up here with archers, infantry, and then a cav line, a very small cav line to defend as well.
Line formation! Archers! Soldiers! Line up after me! This is madness! This is Sparta! Forward! Shoulder to shoulder!
I've got a handful of horse archers following me here. I mean, the enemy, that's how this battle's been going. The enemy has 200 horse archers, we have 7. Can help these guys retreat. We're basically trying to reform the line, and this fucking enemy is pursuing us.
This is where we fight! This is where they die! Line of attack!
I can't fight with my normal bravado, otherwise I'd just be in there just laying waste to their heavy cav pursuing our troops. I'm gonna have to really pick my spots here down to just a sliver of life. You can't actually see any life left. It's basically like I don't even have a fraction of life. I have like a little tiny pixel of life.
Move! Form a wall! Footmen! Form a shield wall!
Of course, people sometimes wonder how I survived this long in a battle. Well, sometimes we'll run with reduced player damage for huge battles like this. But the other big component is this character has 300-something endurance. So he has something like 220 hit points. He also has elite armor. Right? You're not going to be able to do this in your game. If you're wondering, watching some of these videos, how the fuck I'm taking, you know, sword blow after sword blow, the armor I'm wearing is elite. There's a few episodes where I sort of highlight the equipment. Late in game, you'll have elite armor as well. And so the enemy attacks, instead of it doing 20 or 30 points of damage, it's doing 2 or 5. And then, of course, when you have 200 and something hit points, you know, you can take a 40 or 50 hit point shot that would normally be half or a third of your life, and here it does a small fraction. Look at this hill. Maybe we can lure the enemy up onto this thing. This is like a beautiful mountaintop to make our last stand here. Of course, I've been saying make our last stand for the last 20 minutes of this video. It's just totally epic with the thunder and lightning. The enemy's way down there reforming on the other side of the river. So I've got a little bit of time just to narrate, to wander, a little commentary. this campaign I just checked is 5,538 days old. So you can do the math. There's something like 80 days in a campaign year, so to speak, right? It is about 80 actual days in a calendar year, which is kind of strange, but that's what the developers came up with. So 5,500 is something like 70 years of game years, right? This campaign is a campaign that I've been playing for 15 months of real life, probably on average 2 hours a day. I'm a firefighter. You know, I have the luxury of playing in the evening when we're not running on calls. Some nights I'll play for 4 or 5 hours, and that's playing at work, right? So if you're young and you're kind of trying to figure out a profession you like, and you like playing Bannerlord, you know, there's a suggestion for you. This long campaign though has enabled me to fight these enormous battles. Like when I was at the sort of intermediate stage of this campaign, maybe 800 hours in or 15, 20 years in, most of the battles were 600 versus 800, you know, 800 versus 1200. But the game has matured now to the point where a lot of the enemy nobles are level 50 or level 40 or something like that. They're very high level, and they have very mature kingdoms. A lot of their citadels are very mature. You know, so they have lots and lots of resources to field huge armies. And of course, once I decided I was going to fight, originally I decided I was going to fight 7 of the 8 kingdoms. It was all but Sturgia. Sturgia was kind of quasi-allied with us, and I felt that apropos because that was my original kingdom. So we were sort of fighting together against these 7 kingdoms. Well, over the years, they've declared war on me a few times, right? I don't have the ability to actually make them an ally. You know, the diplomacy system in Bannerlord is sad. That's one of the main things that the developers probably need to fix for the game to sort of move to the next level. We're moving our troops up here because I'm hoping that I can bottleneck the enemy in that little it's a spot tucked between the rock and the river there. I'm hoping I can concentrate firepower, especially with all these archers. So I was allied with Sturgia for maybe 10 years of game time, you know, a couple 3 months, and it actually got to the stage where the game was in a quasi stalemate. In fact, I might have even been gaining territory again on the enemy despite fighting, you know, the 7 other kingdoms. And I just wanted the ultimate challenge, right? I wanted an even harder challenge. So over the years, Sturgia would declare war on me occasionally. The diplomacy system with this sort of random nature, and for the previous 20 years, I would just pay him for peace, right? I'd say, here's some money, you're now my friend, right? And they would start to fight my enemies. Well, about 5 game years ago, maybe 4 game years ago, I said, nah, we're not going to pay you guys anymore, you insolent fucks. We're going to attack you as well. So we added them to the mix. Now we're fighting everybody. And as Napoleon found out in 1812, 1813, it turns out you can't actually face everybody, fight everybody, and win. It doesn't mean that we can't have glorious battles and victory here and there. But when you're fighting the whole map for as long as I have, eventually you just get worn down by sheer numbers. And that seems to be the case in this battle. As fun as the challenge has been, it's also been a great opportunity for me to show a lot of tactics, a lot of battlefield tactics that I think is a very underused element in the game Bannerlord. There's an enormous amount of tactical opportunity with all the different battlefields, all the different terrain, rocks and rivers and whatnot. As we open fire here, we're going to try to concentrate fire. The enemy has managed to sort of squeeze themselves between the river and that rock, so we're going to try to light them up with our elevated archers here. I don't even think their archers can shoot at us, or if they can, not very many of them can shoot at us. But Bannerlord has an enormous potential for tactical opportunities. Now the AI is not terrific, everybody knows that. I've used realistic battle mod. The AI is perhaps a little bit better with that, but it's also much slower, and so this battle is already over an hour long. You know, it might be 2 hours or 3 hours, and I don't know if people are gonna want to fight battles that were 3 hours. That might be historically accurate, just like the fact when you use RBM that cavalry tend to dominate. But I don't know that people really enjoy a game that all of a sudden is unbalanced just because it's more realistic. I mean, speaking of realism, you would never be able to swing your polearm like I have in this battle 400 times and not be exhausted. But sometimes realism also makes things boring, right? That's part of the reason we play games like this, is because sometimes real life seems boring compared to what we can potentially do in a game like this. Nevertheless, the tactical opportunities in Bannerlord are immense, and I think anybody who's been watching a lot of this channel has had their horizons expanded considerably on what you can do tactically. Of course, I have learned from the community as well over the course of my 6 months filming this. My own tactics have continued to refine. I've added tricks that people have suggested, even subscribers to the channel. This is not like I'm Yoda when it comes to tactics. I've just played a lot, I've studied a lot, and then applied what I've learned. There's plenty of people out there doing some amazing tactics that we all can learn from, and that I continue to learn from. But I think especially the intermediate player, someone who's getting their feet wet with the game for the first time, having difficulties winning against large forces, I think that this channel has a lot of value for them. And I hope it's been entertaining as well. Those who have been following along with the campaign, I think it's been playing out a little bit like a good fiction book, right? This battle against the whole world. Those who enjoy the historical analogs, I love talking about history. It really does turn out to be true that fact is greater than fiction, right? The story of Napoleon, for example, is just an amazing story, and for some reason people are still reading bad fantasy novels. Just go study the life of Napoleon. It's much more exhilarating than any novel. So the enemy's trying to cross the bridge here, and I'm sending up forces basically to try to cut them off. If we can divide their forces here, we can gain a tactical advantage. Divide and conquer, right? This is Caesar. This is an age-old military tactic. I'm moving archers back and infantry and cav forward aggressively into the enemy as they try to cross here. At this stage, we're seriously outnumbered, and every single little tactical advantage we can gain, hopefully that gives us some chance of turning the tide here. I say turning the tide because you just never know in a battle like this. I don't bring up the status bar that shows how many troops are alive, how many are dead. So we're going to make another ferocious rush here. Of course it's desperation, right? We're fighting an overwhelming enemy here. I'm flying in with a sliver of life against, and again, we're still fighting elite troops. But I'm hoping to swing the tide in this battle. I've had battles like this all of a sudden where the enemy starts to rout, so we're not giving up till the last man is down. I mean, one javelin is all it takes, these motherfuckers. Fuck you. I'm separated from my men. Guy coming in to spear me. Fuck you. So I'm going to let the AI play this out. This has been too long of an epic battle to not show this. I don't have a lot of hopes for them winning in this battle. Again, we're outnumbered 6-7 to 1. But this feels like the culminating battle in a really difficult campaign. With the thunder and the lightning, it's been truly epic. At least they're forming kind of a high ground here up on the hill. The enemy again continues to play very defensively. I'll open up the status bar here strictly to fast forward it. So we have 1,000 down, they're down 30. I mean, at least we killed 3,600 with only 1,000 losses. Hey, they're forming a defensive circle down here. Not the worst strategy. Note that they're also over the ridge from the enemy archers, right? So the enemy can't actually shoot them. It might even be fairly effective. I mean, if you're fighting lots of cav like this, this is actually a decent strategy. I would probably form a square, but a circle here is pretty decent too. I'm gonna keep fast forwarding this. I know nobody wants to watch the AI blunder. I'll try to make some more commentary here, though. I have a few more thoughts that are coming to mind. My campaign of late has played out a little bit like the Napoleonic Wars. Of course, Napoleon had this enormous rise to fame this enormous rise to success, and then eventually ended up essentially conquering about a third to a half of Western Europe. I mean, most of Europe, really. The only thing that really slowed him down, stopped him towards the end, was Russia, and then a Vietnam-like battle with Spain. There's a very old war saying, I don't remember the exact person. My guys are charging here. Look at how brave these motherfuckers are. Brave pixels, get in there! I mean, they're making a fight of it, but there's a lot of death, too. And it looks like they got steamrolled. Another batch of reinforcements came up. They're kind of holding the line of the bridge there. I still have elite troops, too. I mean, there's some lower level troops mixed in, but I still see some Battanian Fiends. That's one advantage in a battle like this we have. I mean, the enemy still has elite troops, too. It's not like you see them, bad troops being killed. In fact, I still see Tier 4, Tier 5 troops on the enemy, too. So, this is just a situation where we were outnumbered so badly that it was going to be almost impossible to win. I think I even said at the beginning of this battle, this might be impossible. There may not be any tactics in the world that'll help you win outnumbered 7-1 against 10,000 troops. So Napoleon eventually invaded Russia in 1812, and it was a disaster. It wasn't so much that he suffered military defeat. He suffered basically the same loss that armies have throughout the centuries when you have an enormous amount of troops, and that is very difficult to feed, clothe, shelter, and keep that many troops healthy while they march 1,000 miles. Right? These guys marched basically from Paris and nearby Paris all the way to Moscow on foot. Right? I mean, they did have some carriages, but that was mostly for the officers, the Cav Corps. So most of these guys were marching. They're eating bad rations. Of course, the Russians, they did the old raised ground, scorched earth tactics, where they denied the French resources on the way in, and the French lost huge amounts of troops, thousands, tens of thousands, to disease, dysentery, starvation. Their horses were starving. In this campaign, eventually the Russians wore the French down. The French eventually made it all the way to Moscow, did successfully take Moscow, but Moscow, the governor of Moscow, Rostopchin, I think, he had the city effectively burned by prisoners. He had prisoners from local jails set loose. They set Moscow on fire. Of course, this destroyed even more of the provisions, even more of the shelter that Napoleon was considering taking. And ultimately, Napoleon decided they had to retreat before the Russians encircled them. Well, on the retreat, it got even worse because they met, the winter of Russia, which is horrendously bad. It was an exceptionally bad winter in 1812, and you see we've lost the battle here, kind of a foregone conclusion once I dropped. But during the retreat, Napoleon's forces got absolutely decimated, and were very lucky just to make it out of Russia at all. 1,500 we took out, 3,700. So the AI actually didn't do a very good job with the last 600 troops. Ultimately a defeat here, just like Napoleon. So Napoleon after 1812 was in a really bad state, and his Vietnam-like war in Spain had really whittled down his troops on his other flank, on his western flank. The military saying at the time for Spain was that Spain is a country where small armies are defeated and large armies starve. And that's because the very hilly nature of Spain is very difficult to produce abundant agriculture. Their agriculture is really concentrated in a handful of bread baskets. As my character here is captured and being toted away by the enemy. It's a grim sight as our citadel and capital is still besieged by I don't know how many thousands of troops. So Napoleon after 1812 was devastated. 1813 he suffered a disastrous battle, the Battle of Leipzig. I mentioned that before, where they erroneously blew up the retreat bridge before the army was really out, and that was kind of the last death throw for Napoleon. There was some very brave last-hearted attempts, almost like this battle, to sort of recover his empire towards the end. But ultimately he was unsuccessful. He had to ultimately surrender in 1814. That kind of feels like this campaign here, right? The parallels are many. Of course, I'm voluntarily fighting the whole map, but Napoleon was fighting the whole map of Europe. They wore him down. He suffered a couple of calamitous defeats, just like this battle, and ultimately at that stage didn't have the resources, especially the heavy cav divisions. He lost a huge amount of cavalry. I'm talking 100,000 heavy horse died on the frozen wastes of Russia. And cavalry were a critical element of his army, both to screen his army with the incredible Marshal Murat, who was one of his top sort of advanced guard / cavalry marshals, and of course he often used his cavalry to to pursue a retreating enemy. Right. Well, he lost that ability after 1812. So the parallels are many. I may eventually make a historical analog to some of these battles with Napoleon, with the invasion of 1812. I even invaded, the former Sturgian territory up in the north. We can accept this little ransom offer here. I've got plenty of gold. Sure, have some gold, you fucks. But just like Napoleon, eventually, here I am. I'm down to. It says 0 guys. I assume I have 1 guy. I'm just like Napoleon. They sentenced him essentially to prison on an island. I think it was called the island of Elbe, out in the middle of the Atlantic. He was bereft of his army. He was defeated. His empire had cratered, and now it's just a decision of whether or not, just like Napoleon, I want to sort of try to continue this saga. I won't spoil any more of the Napoleonic saga because there's actually more to the story. The story's not actually over, but the question is whether or not my campaign is over. I imagine there might be some people who want to see me fight it out to the very last, and I'm willing to do so. So please let me know in the comments of whether or not you want me to continue this epic campaign. I appreciate you guys' support the whole way through. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've learned a lot. I imagine even the intermediate player has learned quite a bit. At a minimum, hopefully you've been entertained. I appreciate the support, all the comments through the months, fellas. And perhaps I will see you again next time.